Hi, guys. Here with another reading from Simple Abundance, a daybook of comfort and joy, Sarah Ban Breathnach. So, I am, if you haven't, I'm not even going to say, I'm just recording these different entries from different days with not the intention of like you're going to read them in sequential order. I'm going to record them in sequential order. I'm just reading them as I like. I just basically land on a page and I'm recording because this is just what the universe just is guiding me to reach. So in this entry is going to be January 22nd, and it's called The Prosperity of Living. Woman must be the pioneer in this turning inward for strength. In a sense, she has always been the pioneer. Anne Morrow Lindbergh. These are challenging times in which to live, but we are not the only generation of women to have known difficult days. It is comforting to realize that others before us have persevered and prospered. During the dark days of the Depression, an editorial in the October 1932 issue of Ladies' Home Journal encouraged readers to remember that, quote unquote, the return of good times is not wholly a matter of money. There is a prosperity of living which is quite as important as prosperity of the pocketbook, end quote. But the magazine stressed that, quote, it is not enough to be willing to make the best of things as they are. Resignation will get us nowhere. We must build what amounts to a new country. We must revive the ideals of the founders. We must learn the new values of money. It is a time of pioneering to create a new security for the home and the family. Where we were specialists in spending, we are becoming specialists in living. End quote. I remember the exact moment when I found that quote. I was mining my acre of diamonds, seated on the floor of an antique shop, perusing women's periodicals from the past for hints on how to live successfully today. I had been on the simple abundance path for a year and felt like a pioneer. In fact, I felt exactly like a woman who had packed up her family and all her worldly possessions in Boston to start across country in a covered wagon in search of the promised land. For 2,000 miles, I had kept the dream of a better life alive while enduring Indian attacks, epidemics, drought, blizzards, tornadoes, snakes, and salted beef. By this time, I was in the Nebraska Territory with 1,000 more miles to go, but I had come too far to turn back. Like that pioneer woman, I was discouraged. When I found that magazine, I immediately embraced it as a telegraph message to my soul. Keep going. Don't stop. You're on the right path, and you are not alone. From that moment, I have never looked back. I learned firsthand that the simple abundance path has the power to transform lives. Are you ready to become a pioneer? Then it's time to invest your soul with all the creative energy at your disposal. Think of me as your scout, your own personal pathfinder. These past 2 years, I've gone ahead and cleared brush from the trail. This much I'll tell you at the outset. The path spirals and takes time. It will take us a year, but it is comforting and nurturing. It can also be undertaken only one day at a time. Don't be afraid. We are not alone. Like pioneers on the trail, we will learn to live by our own light and the stars of heaven, for that is all we need. There is no obstacle that true grit and amazing grace cannot overcome. You guys, when I read this, first of all, several things, right? Like it's a reminder that no matter how hard times are for us now, people have had like this is not new. Like women have gone through hard times, right? Like when you're struggling, with the cost of eggs or like just, where we are politically in our climate, when you read old books or you read old material, you realize like you forget that people have been through hard times and have persevered. I think about this all the time as a black woman in America. Like my ancestors, who I don't know, were slaves, right? And I am not an American. Like if I go back to my ancestors, most of my ancestors came from Haiti, and before then, like Africa, but they came from Africa and were dropped off in Haiti and were slaves in Haiti, and hence like the generational came down to the point that here I am now, in 2025 living in America. And I think about that all the time. Like what my ancestors had to go through, what the women before us had to go through. And when you remember that, you you realize that you are not alone, that someone has done this before. And so for me, reading that passage is motivation to find the books, to find the the journeys of the past, to find the writings of the past, and to read them and to remember that people have had hard times, and to seek out inspiration of like, well, how did you get through these hard times, right? And I think so often we take for granted, history, right? Like history is just like, what do I need history for? You need history because you need to remember where we came from. You need to remember that this is not like our first merry-go-round with our economy. This is not our first merry-go-round with like, a charged political climate. This is not our first merry-go-round with inflation or the struggles of like, sickness and how our families are doing. Like reading this is a reminder that when she wrote this in 1995, there was there was turmoil in the world in 1995. And then she reads an article from 1932 from Ladies Home Journal where they're talking about the struggle. And then you think about the 1800s where the pioneer women, again, like moved in the wagon, and you the image of the movies that you've seen where like these women and these men, these families go cross country on horse and circle the wagons, and they're going to California to try to build a better life. And what they had to go through to get from where they were to where they wanted to be. It's just a reminder that like we go through hard times. We go through hard times, but we can get through them. And it is up to us to develop the inner fortitude to get through those tough times, right? But you have to develop the inner fortitude. You have to develop the inner muscle, the belief, the forget just hope, right? But like the internal sense of like, this is my reality right now. This is what is being presented to me. How do I do this? How do I do this with an aspect of love and not just getting through it, not just like, oh, let's just like tolerate this. It's like, how can we actually thrive? And in 2025, where this is the year of thrive, right? Like I'm a believer and this is the year to thrive. What does that thrive look like? Right? Does it look like money? Does it just look like inner happiness? Whatever that is, this is your year to thrive. And go to the past, read up on history, read up on the stories of the past to learn how they navigated it, and to learn, okay, this is not the first time that we've had hard times, right? So, you know, I am like I love this book, and I highly recommend that anybody get this book if they are just looking for inspiration, if they're just looking for a sense of like, you're not alone in this process, right? So that's today's entry. I will see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this video, and take care. Bye, guys.